So I'm delighted to welcome today a really, really bright spark, Shayna Melissa, who is an RN nurse, but you're more than that, Shayna, aren't you? Far, far more than that. By the age of 26, you had a gazillion qualifications under your belt. So tell us what you do now and how you got to what you're doing.
Sure. I think actually I was like 22 when I had a couple of my nursing licenses and a couple of my degrees. And now fast forward, I have 4 nursing licenses, and I've been a registered nurse over 30 years now. I'm a nationally board certified nurse practitioner. I am licensed as both an adult and a pediatric nurse practitioner. So I truly treat every age from the premature infant to the 100-plus-year-old. And I'm more of an intuitive holistic healer. When people find out about me after the doctors and the specialists couldn't help them, and then I make them feel better, a lot of times without medications, then they're like, oh my God, where have you been? And then when their doctors see their success stories, then their doctors reach out to me and had to know what I do. And then their doctors sometimes become my clients.
Ah, interesting.
So, yes, it's a different world. Like 30 years ago, most of the doctors wouldn't look at a nurse like that, for advice. But now to have a lot of doctors and specialists come to me as, their healthcare provider, it's a whole new world.
It's a really, really true accolade to what you do. So when you say 4 licenses, what do you mean? So in the UK, you're a nurse or you're a nurse? So why do you need this?
Okay, so before I graduated nursing school, I took my licensed practical nursing exam. And I passed that. And then when I graduated, I took my registered nurse, my RN. So I got my LPN, then my RN. Then I went right back for my bachelor's of nursing and then my master's and postmaster's degree. And so after my RN and the bachelor's of nursing, then I went back for my adult nurse practitioner license, which is a higher license where I can prescribe the medications and have my own practice. So I went back for my nurse practitioner license and I graduated a semester early because I didn't want to graduate with everyone trying to get a job at the same time. And then I sat for the national boards and I got nationally board certified. It shows I'm up to the national standard here in the US. And that in order to maintain that national status, you have to show continuing education credits every few years to show that you're keeping up on the latest treatments and tests and medications. So I've maintained my national board certification now it's my 3rd decade without any lapse. And then I decided to go back and get my postmaster's degree as a pediatric nurse practitioner. So because here in the US where I'm from, you can be a nurse practitioner in a certain area. And like parents would ask me like, oh, can you see my 5-year-old? I'd be like, hold on, let me get another degree and then I'll come back, another license. So my 4 licenses, my LPN, my RN, my adult nurse practitioner, and my pediatric nurse practitioner.
Wow. So I had no idea that you needed to be, what do you call it, licensed in so many different areas over there, which is is it a gimmick? Is it another one of
Yes.
thing?
Yes and no. Yeah, licensing is good to show, that we're trained adequately and that we pass certain tests. But of course, there is money making behind it as well. Like, let's be real. Yeah. Here you need a license to go fishing in your lakes. So.
Yeah, we have that as well. It's ridiculous, isn't it? The whole thing is a big scam. So, do you work in a hospital now, or do you work independently? What does your life look like?
Okay, I've worked over the past 3 decades in every area. I've done hospice, home care, ventilators, dialysis, hospitals, drug rehabs, physical rehabs, like you name it, nursing homes. Now I predominantly do visits kind of like this on a Zoom-like video, where I have a lot of clients in different states, countries, and continents now that I can just get them on an appointment like this. And even my local clients love it because they don't have to spend an hour commuting each way, in a contagious, infectious waiting room with people that are sick. Like, I have them wait less than 1 minute in the waiting room, my virtual waiting room. So it's all virtual like this. And it's great because say, your mom needs a visit with me and she's in another country or a different part of your country. You can get on the meeting with her at the same time. So two minds are better than one. Maybe her memory is not so good and you can ask other questions and take notes. So I find it's very advantageous. And I started doing that right before the pandemic. So I was kind of a little bit ahead of the curve.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
So how do you prescribe then if you've got people on different continents? How do you prescribe?
Ooh. Well, my prescribing I try to keep here, but in other countries, sometimes a lot of the medications we have as prescriptions here, they don't need a prescription for. If you go to Mexico, it's like over the counter there. What's a prescription here? So it's not necessarily, and yeah, I work with people in other countries. They'll tell me what medications they're on, and I kind of have to do a little translation to figure out what the US drug is. But yeah, so the prescribing is here in the US,
Cool, okay. And tell us about your grandma. Your grandma up and the fact that she did far better than everybody else in terms of healthcare and longevity.
You did some research on me, didn't you? Well, kudos to you. Okay, well, my grandma, God rest her soul, she raised me. She grew up a minority, divorced parents, poor during the last pandemic, and then survived the Great Depression. And she still graduated school 2 years earlier. So, these kids nowadays have an excuse. My mom was this, my dad was that, and always have an excuse for why they're not doing good in life. Look at my grandma, poor, minority, divorced parents during the Great Depression and graduated high school 2 years early. And then my grandpa was a pharmacist, but grandma was the so opposite. She taught the best way possible by example, right? She didn't say, you do this, you do that. I would start seeing these things. She would always get food and say, no salt, please. Or she would go to a special place and have them make peanut butter for her from scratch where they didn't put the salt in it. And then in later years, I would start going to health class and I was realizing that health makes you keep the water, which raises your blood pressure. So I would put the pieces together. She was watching her diet, so she didn't need a blood pressure pill. And then I would see she would eat a banana every day because the banana had the potassium and is a little bit of a natural diuretic. So I would start seeing these things, and she was using food as medicinal purposes back, I'm going to date myself, in the 70s. And then I would see that all of her siblings had diabetes, and she watched what she ate, stayed skinny, and never developed diabetes. So that was one of the first instances that I realized we can actually decide if our family history for certain genes is going to be expressed or not. People are only starting to talk about this now, but this was in the 70s. I learned that from her. Her siblings didn't watch what they ate, weren't skinny because they didn't watch what they ate, developed diabetes. Grandma watched what she ate, stayed skinny, never developed it. So I knew then that even though we have a family tendency, we can decide if a gene's going to be expressed or not by what we do and what we put in our body. So, people are talking about this now. My grandma was so far ahead of the time. And then I learned it from her. So I'm kind of ahead of the curve.
Brilliant.
Can I interject one more thing? I don't know, maybe this is the point you were talking about because I don't know what your research showed. But did you hear about my grandma walking again? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh,
I was going to say, and there's more.
Yes. So yes, she raised me, so we used to live together. In college, I moved out, and then right as I was graduating, I found out she was no longer walking again. So I said, that's it. We're going to live together. I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me. So I literally back then, this is in the early 90s, I carried her into the doctor's office. Not like every other person had a wheelchair, right? They weren't around. So I carried her in, and the doctor looked at her like, she's 79, And I'm like, no. She said to me, and she looked up to me for two reasons. She had osteoporosis, so her height was a little shorter, but also like I'm the brand new nurse. So she's looking up to me and she's asking me, do you think I'll ever walk again? And I'm like, whoa, I'm 21 years old. I'm a brand new nurse. I don't even have experience yet. This is a big weight on me. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking, if I get to the cause, I can stop the progression, I can reverse it and get her walking again. So I thought about it. I'm like, yes, you're going to walk again. And I really believe it's because I gave her that belief that then we tried and did the consistent action steps and just never ever quit. Where the doctors, they're just like, she's 79. And I'm like, no, she's only 79. Right? I'm like, she's only 79. So because I think I gave her the belief that then we put the action. If I didn't give her that belief, she would have never tried and done it again. So then we did steps. She was stiff from not moving so much. So I did stretching exercises every day. She was weak from not walking, that I strengthened her every day. And, then we got her sitting balance, and then, I'd get her standing, and then I'd put, have her go a little further and a little further, and then without the walker, then without the cane. And so eventually she was walking, no cane, no walker, no nothing. And I was a brand new grad. I didn't even have experience. Now, mind you, in the 90s here in the US, in the 90s in the US where I'm from, back then, you didn't send people to physical therapy like they do today, right? You get a little sprain, you go to physical therapy. I was making up exercises to strengthen. I was putting like a can in each arm and doing curls and I don't even know how I thought of these things. I just thought, what can she do? And okay, let's do more repetitions today, or a little heavier can, but it worked. So, believe to achieve and never ever quit. That's what I gotta say. And
absolutely,
yes.
The belief that the clients that I work with, a lot of them have cancer or very serious conditions, and I can tell you those who are going to recover, and I'm sure you know the same. You can tell by the attitude, by the body language, the way people conduct themselves, the language that they use. Some people believe that they're going to get better, and they do, and some people believe that they've got a time limit, especially if they've been given a date by the doctor, or you've got 2 months, 3 months, a year, whatever.
That's crazy. We should not have expiration dates on us. We're not food here. Come on. Here, I don't know. I've heard stories where people were misdiagnosed cancer, didn't have it, passed away, and they got the wrong biopsy results.
Yeah, I have that all the time. I just, one lady, she's just had surgery for a condition that she was diagnosed with 2 years ago, and she's had all kinds of problems, and she's had surgery, and there's no evidence of that condition that she had surgery for. So there's something wrong, but not what was diagnosed. I hear this all the time.
And I like to say, I like to tell, well, I don't know if this word is going to capture in filters, maybe the real story. Okay, put it that way. Because that T word might get me in trouble. But sometimes here in the US especially, it's more of a moneymaker. Sometimes the surgeons will operate and they could tell the person, listen, why don't you watch your weight, keep your weight down, maybe you won't have that pressure on your knees and need a total knee replacement. And sometimes meniscal tears, like I had a tear in my knee, and I didn't have a surgical repair, and I'm fine now. I have a torn meniscus and a ligament, and I could still ski. I haven't lately though, but I think sometimes it's more of a moneymaker than it needs to be. And sometimes the surgeons, I'm not saying they're not all like that, but sometimes that surgeon doesn't really have to do that surgery and is just being the best salesperson there is.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the hospital gets paid for whatever the procedure is. And I learned this years ago. I had stage 4 cancer 8 years ago now, and I was given less than a year to live, and I wasn't having any of it, and I beat it in 3 months. So that's partly why I help other people who's been there, done that, all the rest of it.
Yes, that's awesome. And I've been in heart failure too, full-blown heart failure. And my specialist at the time, I'm not going to say his name, although I'd like to, he's like, well, we're going to put you in what they call cardiac rehab, right? That means you just walk on a treadmill with some monitors. And I'm like, for me, in my situation, everyone's different. I'm like, that to me was not going to get me out of heart failure. It was not going to slow down the progression. It was not going to reverse the progression. What's the point of that? If you're not stopping my progression, you're not reversing it, but you're making tons of money off me 3 times a week, walking on a treadmill with a monitor. I'm like, no, thank you. And I said, Doc, with all due respect, we have to get to the cause, because if we get to the cause, we can stop the progression from getting worse. Like, I'm getting worse at this point. And he's like, listen, and this is the heart specialist. He's like, 95% of all my patients, I never find the cause. I'm sorry, if your healthcare provider is not getting you healthy, you need to fire them. So I fired my doctor at the time. I'm like, you have one body part to do. I'm only giving you the one part and you can't do it. Like, no. So that's my thing. If your healthcare provider is not getting you healthy, get a different healthcare provider. Because if you have a contractor in your house and you don't like the work they're doing, they're fired. People need to realize they have the power to fire their provider, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or look for a healthy alternative. You know, if they like their doctor and they're just not getting them healthy, well, all right, let me at least look at other healthier options out there.
Yeah, but we know that doctors aren't trained to cure anything. They're trained to treat, not
yes.
I'm so
yes, I'm so glad you said that. I want the viewers to think about this. If you guys have, say, high blood pressure or diabetes, did your doc say, here, try this, try this, like you're a guinea pig, try this, I will treat you, as if it's like a trick or treat, try this, the doctor's order, and well, you know what, on the way out, book that appointment for next week, we'll recheck your blood pressure. Yeah, we'll squeeze you in. Now, you know what he just did? Just gave himself a nice, quick, easy visit for next week to check your blood pressure. But could he have said, you know what, Elaine, if you watch your salt and you drop 5 pounds, maybe you won't need that blood pressure pill.
Yeah.
And let's go over diet. Do they do that? So how many of you out there are on blood pressure pills or pills for sugars, you know, your diabetes? And did your healthcare provider really go into what can help you prevent needing that medication and how to control it with diet? And if not, they probably sold you a quick, easy visit. One, for 2 reasons. One, they're not trained to. And 2 is it's a lot quicker to hear, say, take this pill, I'll see you next week, because they're getting repeat business.
Yeah.
And then that doctor is going to see you every month. And then come on in, get some blood work. Oh, come back for the results. We'll go over them. I'll refill your prescription then. He just got you dependent on coming back monthly for visits. So when people say, I'm healthy, I go to the doctor every month, I don't think you're healthy if you're needing to go to the doctor every month. Like people, they're so trained wrong, but the society trained us that way.
Yeah, absolutely. The big pharma funding the medical schools is where it all changed, isn't it?
Yes.
But people say to me, well, yes, I have a healthy diet. And when I get them to keep a food diary and you see it, it's horrendous, absolutely horrendous. People have no idea.
Yes, it's like this. If I got to watch these words here because I don't know where this is streaming. But if the big manufacturers of these drugs came up with the cure for the big C, it would put them all out of business.
Yeah. And the same for the charities as well. I won't raise money for the charities for research or anything like that because their marketing budget is bigger than the national debt in some countries.
And it's so,
they don't want the cure.
Yes. And it's so crazy. You see, I get my clients. This is the main difference between a lot of healthcare providers and myself. And I don't want to say doctors because I don't want to generalize because there's really good ones out there. But the doctor, first of all, they give you an order. You do this, you do that, right? It's called a doctor's order here. I don't do that. I want to give you, Elaine, all of the decisions so you can make a truly informed decision, so you can choose. So that's my job is I feel to educate my clients of all the decisions, the prescriptions, the healthier options, and then let them decide what's best for them. So when a lot of people go to the doctor and the doctor doesn't know about the healthier options I'm using, how to activate genetic pathways and increase our own body's production of antioxidants and make more healthy mitochondria that are required for the cells to live and detoxify. When the doctor doesn't know of these things, because one, he's not taught, he can't give you all of the decisions. So how can you make an informed decision when you go to a traditional doctor that's not aware of these new, healthier, cutting edge options that are out there? So I don't give doctors orders. I inform. I help them choose to make an educated decision. Those are the biggest differences. And also, I merged several modalities together. A lot of traditional doctors, because I also helped mentor residents and interns as well as the nurses. And they're based on simple algorithms. You have high blood pressure, you take this pill. And I'm like, I look at you as an individual. Okay, Elaine, I know you want some more healthier options. So I'm going to tell you about salt and sodium and things like that. So I don't just stick you in an algorithm. I look at you as an individual. And I think that's where society loses it. They're just stuck in the algorithm. If this, do that. If this, do that. And I'm sorry, most people don't fit into an algorithm. They don't. We're so unique and individual that no. So thank you for letting me go off on that.
It's the same thing you were saying about the medication, and we're all different. Each person with a medication will have a different reaction to that medication to the next person.
Yes.
There is no one size fits all. And then the doctors aren't trained in nutrition, and we know that nutrition can pretty much fix everything. And that's how our ancestors carried on. We've only had this nonsense in the last 150 odd years. Prior to that, they lived off the land, Mother Nature, the food was good, the soil was good, and now it's all been poisoned. So we have to take notice of what's going on.
Yes.
But then the marketing is corrupt as well. So it's difficult for people to know where to go, what to do. So how can people get hold of you, Shayna?
Oh, awesome. Well, the easiest way is just go to ShaynaMelissa.com. It's spelled like my name here, ShaynaMelissa.com. And they can click the events tab to see prior events, future events. They can click the contact tab, follow me everywhere, subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my LinkedIn. They can send me an email. I have an upcoming event. Get healthy and happy with me, the Biohack NP in 2023. And that's going to be, all of my events, most of them now are online. So it's really great. And if somebody's like, well, I don't know what day your course is, if I'm going to be able to make it, they also get replay access. So even though they can catch all the lives, they also have their own individual dashboard with replay access. Private community includes their wellness workbook, a full self-assessment tool where I get to see all their strengths and their weaknesses. And that class includes a consultation with me, a private one-on-one. So I really get to hone in on what they need. And, when we were talking about the more natural living off the land, that's how I learned all of this, was from my grandma who raised me in the 70s, about watching her eat a banana for her potassium. She wasn't popping a potassium pill, right? She was eating low salt foods. And sometimes we just need to go back to basics. And, I think another thing is, when I do what's best for the patient, like a traditional doctor just prescribes you a prescription, more of the alternative docs sometimes think you never need a prescription or a test. And I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I look at you holistically, body, mind, spirit, cellular level. I look for a more naturopathic approach when possible. Means if I can give you something plant-based and more natural, I will. And I kind of merge that with what they call functional medicine. But to me, functional medicine is kind of an oxymoron, because if you attack the function, the root cause of the problem, you usually don't need the medications, right? So I don't know why they call it functional medicine. And I've been practicing it before there ever was a school of functional medicine here. It's such an oxymoron. So I merge those modalities with biohacking to actually activate your genes and your genetic pathways, so your own body can do what it used to do and was meant to do. Before we have these health issues, we used to produce our own antioxidants, right? Our own defenses to keep us healthy. And we used to make more mitochondria, and we used to produce more collagen. And when we get older, we stop producing all of those good defenses. And that's when all these illnesses set in. We can now rev up our body's own defenses like we used to, make more antioxidants, make more mitochondria, produce more building blocks of collagen, because I believe those are, and get rid of the toxins that are becoming toxic in our bodies. I believe when I attack those root causes, hundreds of illnesses are linked to those. If you look at them all, everything from pain to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, it's all linked to free radicals, oxidative stress, inflammation, mitochondria malfunctioning, mitochondria dying off, and our collagen depletions.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, but for somebody who didn't know anything about what you've just said, it would sound like rocket science.
Yes.
I'm just listening to I devour 2 or 3 books a week. Sometimes they're general education books, but very often they're health books. And the one I'm on at the moment is called Metabolical by Dr. Robert Lustig, and he's the sugar guru. He's a retired endocrinologist, a retired pediatric endocrinologist that couldn't say all this stuff while he was practicing. And he now is stepped outside. He can say things that he couldn't say previously on how the pharma companies, particularly in the 70s, 80s, whatever, were smoozing the doctors and sending them on fancy conferences in far-flung places, and oh yes, bring your wife with you, and you can go snorkeling or whatever. So Dr. Robert Lustig is a big advocate against sugar and all the places sugar's hidden. And his book title is Metabolical, so it's metabolic and diabolical mixed together. So yeah, very, very interesting, that one.
That's nice. I used to work at Endo also, and the doc I worked for really didn't go too much into diet. They would come in with their donut bag and I'm like, I can't understand. This is like, I don't know, I'm sure you heard of that drug Oxy, right? And the one that's really addicting here, and in the US they're switching over, when they get too hooked on it, they're switching to heroin. And I remember when those drug reps would come in and say, oh, it's not addicting and all this, and I'm like, yeah, right. And then we would later find out that that company tried to buy stock in, I don't want to say the name of the other one, but the other company, which was the antidote, right? But they were saying, if it wasn't addicting, why would that company try to buy stock in the other company to treat the addiction for that drug? I don't know.
Well, follow the money again, isn't it? It's always follow the money. I was in a hospital one time. I was doing a follow-up appointment with my situation, and this lady leapt over to me. She said, Elaine, hello, it's lovely to meet you in person. She was a Facebook person that had asked me for some guidance on cancer. Anyway, we got her to the point where she was completely clear. So I said, oh, you're looking really pleased with yourself. She said, yes. I said, I've just signed up to chemotherapy. I said, well, why on earth did you do that? I said, you were clear. So she said, well, they've told me if I sign up, the hospital gets money, and then that money can help other people. And she was a deeply religious person, so she thought she was doing good. And then a few months later, she contacted me in a terrible state, and now she's dead. So go figure, people get frightened and coerced into things that are really, really inappropriate.
It's so sad. You see, when I worked in traditional medicine, they were trained, book your appointment on the way out. When do you want to see me again? When do you want to see me again? When do you want to see me again? And now when my clients see me, they're like, when do you want to see me again? I'm like, oh, well, you're going to be feeling better soon. And they're like, but wait, I want to see you. And I'm like, okay, if you miss me, you can schedule something for next month, because they're so used to being dependent upon going to the doctor for that prescription that they need. And here, when they're running low, the doctor says, no, you need to come in for a visit. Even if it was, they just saw him a month ago. And no, you need to come in for the results now. Wait, the results are all normal, but you're making that person come in to tell them they're all normal when they were just in last month. So it seems like such a moneymaker that when clients are new to me, they're like, what? Like, I don't need to come back next month? I go, well, I don't mind, a tweak. Like, they'd rather come and see me knowing they're healthy as a tune-up to get that reassurance. And I'm fine with that, but I will not keep them dependent upon me. And I felt like traditional medicine was just keeping them sick and dependent upon me. I'd rather you go get better and say, oh my God, I miss Shayna. Can I come back and see you this month? And, I have patients like that. They're like, I just want to come and make sure everything's okay. I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But I don't trap them to come and see me, or keep them sick. This was a movie years ago. I don't know if you ever saw it, called Misery. I think the nurse broke the guy's legs to keep him sick, so he would be dependent upon her. Or if you ever heard of a firefighter that lit a fire to put it out to be the hero.
Yeah.
It's craziness. It really is. I do what's best for the client. A lot of times it's not the medications. It's really not. But if they need it, I'm not opposed to giving it to them. So, I think that's what sets me apart from a lot of other providers. They're either one extreme or the other. And don't get me started. But, I don't want to keep them dependent. I don't. I want to make them better. And, it's like that animal, you set it free and maybe it'll just come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do the same thing. So I have a program which has 4 parts to it, and I look at the behavior, I look at the biohacking, metabolic side of things. I do hair analysis and blood analysis. So those give me a full picture. So we then find the root cause of what the problem is, and then I can say, will you do this or that, with your diet and nutrition, etc. So and then they say at the end, well, what do we do now? So when each of the results come back, I have a session with them online, and then they say, well, what happens now? I say, well, you're good to go. Well, really? I said, well, you know what to do. You know how to eat now. You don't need this med or whatever, they've decided. I don't say to come off meds. It's that's their choice, of course. But the majority of them do. Instead of warfarin and heart meds, take cayenne pepper. Take turmeric to reduce the inflammation. There's just so many things that you can do that's out there in Mother Nature.
Well, I think that's why now I'm more moving towards the retainer, because people want me throughout the year, where they're like, they just want a little tune up here, they want to tune up there, and they need some reassurance, or, I don't want to give them too much information at once. So I'll give you a little bit, then, it will move forward. So I think my practice is more moving towards an annual retainer. This way they have me throughout the year, throughout the quarter, like, hey, you want to try it for a quarter first, a 3-month trial, like a gym membership.
Yeah.
Then they can do that, because I'm there for them 24/7. I am. And I love what I do. And I just, the modern medicine, I don't want to keep them sick and dependent on me. I want to get them better. So people need to retrain their brain, they're so used to, it was like this. If the doctor doesn't know what to do for you, he sends you to the specialist. But now, if you go to the specialist and you're not getting better, you think that's the last stop. But here it's not, because people aren't aware of people like me. So for instance, when I was going to the heart doctor and I'm like, wow, I'm in a heart failure and he can't help me, right? He says, no, the meds. I said, the meds or the exercise, right? The treadmill, walking. Is either of that going to stop the progression? No. Is either of it going to slow down the progression? No. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, in all honesty, it's not stopping the progression. It's not slowing it down. It's not reversing it. Those were the 3 main things I asked. I'm like, what's the point? So I think it's important that, they realize if they go to the specialist isn't getting them better. They think that's the last stop, but it's not. Like for me, I'm like, wait, we can send, at the time we weren't sending, well, Richard Branson wasn't sending people to outer space yet, so I can't say that. But it's like, if the specialist isn't making you get better, you need to think of another option. But people think the specialist is the last resort. They don't realize, like, man, maybe I'll try a different specialist. Maybe I'll try someone that does alternatives, somebody that does newer techniques. So for me, in full-blown heart failure, Imagine how many people don't have the medical experience I do that are like, fine, he's the specialist. He's got to know what's best for me. I'm just going to listen to him. I'm not going to listen to, a nurse. And that's craziness, because when that doctor told me 95%, 95 out of every 100 people, he could not stop the progression. He could not reverse it. He could not make a difference in them. I'm like, what's the point in all that,
Yeah.
So I think it's important. Yeah, it's important for people to know if their healthcare specialist isn't making them better, they can look at, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, come reach out to me, because I'm educating a lot of the doctors and specialists. They're not aware of how to activate genes, how to rev up production of your own good defenses, how to really get rid of these toxins that I'm now educating a lot of the doctors and a lot of the specialists. So we need to retrain our brain thinking sometimes the specialist knows best, No.
I once had a specialist report me to the trading standards in the UK because I was recommending a supplement and he thought it was snake oil and, this, that and the other. So he's at the local hospital and he was really, really upset with me. Anyway, I had a visit and they took a pot of this supplement away, took it to their laboratory. Somewhere I've got a letter saying it's perfectly fine, just kind of carry on. And so I was running cardiovascular clinics at the time and testing people for arterial stiffness and central pressure readings and that kind of thing. And
Nice.
One of the clients, nearly all my clients went off their blood meds. And one of them, he was due to have a 5-way. I didn't realize there was such a thing as a 5-way heart surgery. I thought there was only 4, but anyway, he was told a 5-way. Anyway, he came to see me, I checked him out, gave him the supplement and other things and recommendations on lifestyle. And to this day, the man's never had surgery. And yet he was due to have this major, really serious operation.
That is awesome. And I've had a lot of success stories too. And it sometimes baffles the modern medicine people. They're like, whoa, what'd she do? Like, I have to know about that. I've had clients that were in stage 4 that are in full remission. I've had like me.
Yes, and I beat it in 3 months.
That's awesome. And I think when I was diagnosed with my autoimmune problems, that was in the start of this lethal pandemic, right? Now, I look at the patients when I did traditional medicine. If they had autoimmune problems, they went to the rheumatologist here, and the rheumatologist gives them meds to weaken their immune system. And then when they don't work, they give them a higher dose and a higher dose. And the higher and higher dose, you get more side effects, interactions. And then when that isn't enough, they add on the prednisone, which is the steroids. And now, so now they have a weaker immune system. Now you're adding on steroids, which weakens their immune system more. Now the steroids also raises their weight, which raises their blood pressure, their sugars, right? Thins their bones, gets them depressed. And then when I would see those autoimmune patients that were doing the traditional treatments, they would come in all the time, sick again, sick longer, sick more severe than anyone else. And so when I was diagnosed, right, I'm like, no, thanks. I'm like, right. And the doctors sometimes get mad at you. I'm like, I don't care. This is my life. Are you going to give me medications during the height of a lethal pandemic to weaken my immune system and thin my bones and make me fatter, raise my sugars and raise my blood pressure and make me sad like all my patients were that did traditional treatment? I'm like, no. And now, fast forward, since I'm activating my genes and revving up my own good defenses, I have no signs of any autoimmune disorders at all whatsoever. And my bones are good, my weight's ideal, my sugars are good, my blood pressure is good. So, I mean, if you look at the people that are treated traditionally for autoimmune and how I'm treated, and look at the outcomes, right? I think that says enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And when people come to me, they say they've been sent home, or I might get a phone call from a family member saying, oh, Uncle Fred's been sent home, they can't do anything more for him, and they're all sad. And I say, brilliant, now you can start really getting well. Now you're not, kowtowing to what you're being told and not being frightened. Let's crack on. And we do, but it depends upon the amount of effort that people are prepared to put in, because not everybody is prepared to put the work in, are they?
No. And that's where you have to understand what's best for the client. You know, if I know my client, I don't typically have this client, but when I worked in endocrinology, you would have that patient that's 100 pounds overweight coming in with the donuts, right? And you know, like you can only talk so much about diet. So maybe that person needs the traditional medication, you know, like, but it's just, I think our society, we're so trained, listen to the doctor, listen to the doctor, listen to the doctor. But if that doctor is not making you better and he's not making you feel good, maybe you need to listen to somebody else, you know? And I just, you know, I'm just sick of traditional medicine keeping them sick. And we call it, I like to call it profits over patients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey ho. Right. Remind us of your website again, Shayna.
Sure. It's ShaynaMelissa.com, ShaynaMelissa.com. And there they can, like I said, they can see get recordings of prior events, future, you know, register for my Get Healthy and Happy with Me in 2023. They can follow me everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. They can contact me under the contact tab. They can check out how to get my books or how to become an author in my next book, Tragedies to Triumphs. And I thank you so much. Now, you're in Portugal? Isn't this cool technology, right? I'm here in like Long Island, New York. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Brilliant.
And yes. And if they want to check out my article, I don't know, maybe when this publishes, we can just drop a link, the one that just published last week in Authority magazine. They can, on the article, they can read it, they can listen to the audio version of it, or there's even a 3-minute mini movie that explains the 5 lifestyle tweaks to alleviate chronic pain.
Very good. Very good. So that's Authority magazine.
Yes.
Marvelous. I'm sure that we'll be able to look at that as well. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And actually, that magazine, that article, Authority looks at the authority figure in that topic. And because I had excruciating pain between autoimmune, dislocated jaw, trigeminal neuralgia, excruciating nerve pain, and I have no pain anymore, and I'm not on any medications. Between that and me being in the medical field for 3 years, they looked at me as the authority on the pain. And I can honestly say that, check this out, there was 2 pain management doctors that worked together, right? One sees that I never go there for any medications, and our mutual clients are all better and don't have to go anymore for medicine. And he's like, oh my God, what are you doing? I have to know about that. And the other one thinks maybe in his head that he's losing money because we're not coming in as often. And it's so sad. And the 2 doctors have since split. One does the healthier options and one still keeps people sick coming back every month.
Yeah, go figure. Right, lovely speaking with you, Shayna Melissa. Lovely to spend time with you today, and we'll put your contact details in the show notes. And don't forget, listeners, to subscribe and press the black bell on the YouTube thingamy. I always forget to say that, so thank you.
Yes, they need to subscribe to your channel so they can listen to all your other episodes.
No, there's about 300 now, so there's quite a few.
Wow.
I think we need to reorganize them as well, and they don't seem to be in a very good organized. They've just kind of happened over the years from when I used to do my radio show, and I think we need to reorganize them somehow. Anyway, thank you again.
Yes,
ShaynaMelissa.com. Bye for now.